First of all, very Merry Christmas to all of you and wishing all of you a Happy New Year in advance. Congratulations for making it to this stage of the challenge. This is the innovation sprint, and yeah, thanks, Manish. This is the innovation sprint. I welcome you all. The competition is going to get difficult from here, and we wish you the best of luck. Just bear in mind one very simple focus area for this part of the challenge. It's all about communication and interpretation. So, if the blunt logic here is if you're not able to simply describe your solution to a target audience, no matter how good your solution is, it will have practically no value. So, this sprint is more on focusing and understanding the fact that by now you would have some type of a prototype in hand and not in prototype, a very strong proof of concept. And you're going to carry this ahead and communicate it to an audience. All right. So, communication design, communication strategy, what are the components of a story or a startup or a business? These are going to be your focus areas for now, from now on, basically, right? And always remember that this entire process of your immersion is cyclic. You begin with an idea, you try to make it into a prototype, you then see its business viability, which is this current sprint of the challenge. Then you continue to repeat that cycle through more customer feedbacks, through more, discoveries, through more market analysis until you arrive at an MVP or a minimum viable product, basically, which is a minimal form of what your service or product is going to look like as a solution, basically. So I just want to reflect upon some of the common feedback, first of all, which was given to all the teams. So there were four key areas which were there for major improvement from all the teams that we observed. And the primary of one being communication and presentation, followed strongly behind by problem statement framing, then validation and customer discovery, and lastly, of course, building uniqueness and value proposition. So, as far as communication and presentation is concerned, always ensure that your video and audio quality are fine. Before uploading, please check once also about the video and audio quality. And many proposals we observed, it went quite a bit overboard with, a lot of background music, unnecessary graphics, and heaps of text. So, what your intention here should be that your ability to simplify information not only shows clarity, but it shows your target audience your ability to interpret into information and find value in that information and convey that clearly. So, this will be one of the major assessment areas in the innovation sprint. And when it came to problem statement framing, you cannot possibly leave your problem statement too broad. So, it needs to be focused on a lot more, and the only way you get more focus is if you go out there and interact with more people around you and understand the problem, head on. And you know adding numbers to your interactions also kind of does have value, because again you're working on an MVP and you're working on a prototype. So you can at least say we met, say, anywhere from 50 to 100 individuals, or more than that or less than that, but give a number and condense the learnings from these many numbers, some simple areas which you felt that could be intervened upon. And when you express that to your audience, it shows that you've really taken the effort to understand the problem as it is outside and not just as a figment of the imagination. So that was another very key point that had to be raised. And framing the problem statement, no matter how strong the problem may appear at face value. For example, I can always say education in India is a problem, or I can also equally say that, engineering education for undergraduate students in India does not match the market demand of what is required in terms of employment outside. Now, if I had to pick one of the two, I'd naturally pick the second one, right? Second one is coming through an assessment of facts, figures, some basic analysis which you must have done to arrive at making a more focused statement, right? So Please, when you frame your problem statement as a simple two-word, two-line sentence or three-line sentence, try to bring in as much information in that two, three-line sentence as possible. So if you saw your feedback form which was sent back to you, there was a simple example given, like the wrong way of writing a problem statement. For example, there's a problem of lack of affordable, comfortable footwear in India for the old. Now, from that statement, I can barely understand anything. What are you classifying as old? What is affordable, comfortable footwear, etc. Right? And the right way of going about it would be how can we make comfort more accessible by overcoming the unaffordable average 2000 premium footwear market option for senior citizens who are greater than 60 years in tier 1 and tier 2 Indian cities. So on this statement, I've captured the location, I've captured the demography, I've captured the price point, I've captured what I'm going to provide and the problem I'm trying to overcome. These are some of the basics that should come in at this point, and you yourselves will feel really great when you dive deeper and start putting these in words. You will start realizing that the self motivation is building on you to solve your problem. And the deeper and deeper you go, the more iterations you run of your problem, the more value you'll start finding. So, yeah, keep up at it and keep doing your customer discoveries. That is a process that never stops. You are encouraged to speak to as many people as possible, your professors, students, the other target user groups, etc. Continue your own customer discoveries and see what it adds up to going ahead. So, that will help you build uniqueness and also your value prop will come out a lot stronger. So, that's it from the feedback side. I'm going to proceed with the presentation today. You've already got it. It was uploaded on the portal for you. If you have gone through the Tell Me a Story upload, which is there, I just want to run you through it today. In addition to that, in aligned with the feedback, I want to just simply show you how you can, capture some of the information for prop statement and value prop more efficiently. So I'm just going to do a quick run through of these two presentations that are prepared. Kindly stand by. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Great.
Yes.
So I want you to interpret this challenge and this entire mission and venture of yours as an act of storytelling. Because at the end of the day, everything that we do amounts to a type of story, whether it is solving a problem or whether it's life itself. You have to understand that, how do you build the right chapter? What is the value you're trying to show and prove? These can be better captured through a story format, basically. And how do you pitch your solution as a business is something that can be more betterly expressed as a story. So, one very simple thing is high time we start avoiding fancy jargon. A startup is simply a business at the end of the day. All right. So, no matter what idea you have in mind, if you want to convert it into something viable, profitable, something that helps society or otherwise, always remember it can be done in a business format. It's time to describe your business as a story. So everything from the point of your ideation stage से लेके अभी तक, you have to start putting that in as a story. And the purpose of any story is to convey a message. In your case, it would be how did you go about solving the problem with your solution? And pretend that the authors of the story are you and your team, right? And it does get overwhelming in terms of what you can communicate depending on the depth of the problem that you've explored. But always remember, right now, and the purpose of this challenge at least, is that you're skimming the surface and trying to understand how to solve the problem, how to understand the problem, so on and so forth. And there'll always be a superb complexity of thoughts running through your mind. Trust me, I have tried to do this for my own startup exercise right here on campus. And the sheer volume of how you get overwhelmed with so many thoughts running through your head when you go about finally, dotting the T's and crossing the, I's for your story, like it's incredibly difficult. But the thing here you have to remember is stick to the basics and emphasize very strongly on what your key values are and build on that only. Treat it as a starting point and just move on from there. Because remember, businesses and startups also at the end of the day are iterative. So you have to keep understanding the flow, the sequence, and building on it. So this is like an unsequenced story basically. And this is what many of the participants who are eliminated did, quite frankly. All right. So they ended up making a product or service first, which they thought could help, and it would have, like, aligned with the problem basically, which they didn't clearly identify from first. And then they try to, think of, like, is it viable or not? Can it be monetized? And then, you align it to the solution, which is really not the way of going about it, quite frankly. So, like a story has different components, like all its introduction, the body, conclusion, and that's broken up into these different parts, like, climax, rising action, opening, so many things. These need to be sequenced because this sequence also indicates your journey to your target audience. And that has to come out really strongly because you're not, you know, entrepreneurs as yet. You're not venture capitalists, you're not businessmen, you're not any of that sort of nature of like people. We're just students here, and we're trying to tell the world that we have an idea and this is what we're doing to make it work basically. So aligning it in context is absolutely critical. You have to identify the problem, find the solution, build the product, and then monetize it. And this has to be done in a continuous iterative process all the way from customer discovery to improving your prototype. Now and always, even in this sprint, you are encouraged to reiterate your product, your prototype, see what more people say, and build on it. Remember, the story will always keep on looping. And in that loop, you will end up with better, better, better products, better services that can help society and planet in the process. So, what are some of the things you have to be very careful about while developing your story? Okay, these are some of the key reasons why all startups fail, basically. So, like your story is there, imagine that nobody wanted to read it. All right? There's absolutely no market demand for your product to begin with. Then you invested too much writing it, which basically means that when you were trying to write your story, you just ran out of cash and there was nothing you can do to finish it, publish it, or otherwise. Right. Then there is your co-authors had other ideas, which means that your team morale and team, uh, strategy building was not that strong to begin with. The right team is, quite frankly, even in the Indian ecosystem, the only thing that carries a startup forward, quite frankly, the long term. You don't have the right team, your startup might not take off the ground and you will not have a story that's, of any value. Then there's always competition. Getting out competed is a very strong reality, but always remember, ideas are never copied in startups. It's just that someone else did it better. I'm sure you must have all seen Social Network, right? Mark Zuckerberg like takes a jab at the Winklevoss twins and tells them that, if I came up with the chair, everyone who made a chair before me can't sue me for making a chair. It's as simple as that, basically. You have an idea, it comes down to the level and dedication with which you want to execute it, and the results will reflect in your market share of your solution, basically. Right? And then there is, of course, pricing and cost issues. You felt that the product or service that you developed as a solution had value. Now, how high it was might have been wrongly misinterpreted. And this is a key outcome of a weak market analysis, basically. So, this is again another reminder to ensure that whatever product or service you're coming up with, even if it is a unique one or an original one, try to come up with at least some case studies of products, some case studies of users of products on similar lines to yours. Okay, if in the case it's unique, and if in the case it's a very saturated market, then you have to do a very comprehensive market analysis of certain points which you established in the context of your service and product that you are offering. What is the points of value to you? So if it's a personal assistive technology, of course, materials will be one thing, functionality will be one thing, cost and pricing will be one thing. So it's nice to make a nice matrix, basically, assess these pointers and align those with your solution and see how your solution differs with market options, right? And that is how you can start building USPs for your product as well. And always remember, at the end of the day, your story has value because your viewers found it and not because you presumed it had. The viewers of your story are your customers and stakeholders, and you can always keep interacting with them every day as you keep writing your story. Story is the pitch, and if you really want to pitch successfully, then you have to is part of this innovation sprint. Consider the following 8 things to be a part of your pitch and in turn a part of your story. All right. Think of them as parts of the story in terms like you're launching a story. There is a launch poster. There is a opening to your book. There is a building sort of action and plot building for your book, the rising action, and that culminates into a climax and it subsides into a falling action basically. So these are the essentials of your story and these have to be covered one way or the other. Right? It begins with your cover, how you want to describe your idea in a simple format first, describing the theme, the problem, what solution you interpreted in the process, what have you been working on in terms of a prototype, value or service, product or service, its value prop, its target market, whatever competition exists for similar products and services in the market. What are your barriers to entry for making a good go to market entry? What is the revenue model you're trying to adopt? And what are the milestones you're hoping to achieve on the way of your journey and writing your story basically? So remember, for this sprint, your total pitch time is only going to be 5 minutes, which is more than enough, quite frankly. The presentation format is going to be video. And again, from the feedback you received, always remember, ensure good audio and video quality, please. And hear and see the video yourself once before uploading it also. And for each part of the story, there is a list of do and don'ts which you have to follow, and it will help you not only like it's not something that we're restricting you to. Feel free to describe your story so long as these 0 to 9 components are concerned considered in the process. All right, but there are certain absolutes that you should try to follow because it will not only help you simplify your communication, it will make it more robust, it will make it more easier for your target audience to understand. We're trying to get value, we're trying to understand the team's energy, morale, confidence, because these things matter, and this is not just for a short term stint, it is for your long term stint. The teams that can manage that energy and enthusiasm in the solution building going forward are the ones that usually end up being the successful ones that get incubated and go on to becoming startups. So when it comes to your cover, okay, that is the first component of your pitch basically, or your story. It's just a starting visual, all right? Plain and simple. Don't go too overboard if you feel that you want to develop a logo or something and you're wasting all your time on, advanced graphics in the context of your solution. You can simply avoid that for the time being and keep working on it on the side. It doesn't matter. All right. The point here is just come up with the name of your solution or brand, okay? And a catchy punchline perhaps, okay, or some words that best describe your solution also. That helps a lot, and it gives an impression and feel of what your solution is trying to hint at, but we don't know it as yet. All right, that you'll keep revealing as your story goes forward. Absolute don't here is that we saw many sort of submissions that we received that came through PowerPoint. There's any harm in using PowerPoint, but there's ways to use PowerPoint also. Avoid using standard templates, please, and try to, at least even if you use a plain white slide with a type of text like this also for that matter, feel it's more than sufficient so long as it's simple and easy to understand. But don't go overboard with dark graphics, don't go overboard with, so many other things which were absolutely not required, only for the time being at least. And always remember, please give adequate citations for all the information and secondary data that you referred to. All right. Don't put it really how you describe the citation. It can be at the end of your presentation. It can be on the same page, however you like it to be, but at least show that it's there with a bracket reference or whatever source is there. So that's that. When it comes to your team, and this is the most important part here. At this point in the sprint, we expect all team members to speak and interact at least a bit and describe yourselves to your target audience. It cannot be just your leader trying to describe everything on behalf of everyone. That's not a good impression of a startup to begin with, or a business for that matter. Everyone associated, no matter how introverted they are, or how much they hate the public limelight, or how much they, feel that they can go up in front of even a small closed review audience, that doesn't really matter here, because the essence here is confidence building. It's a very strong core skill set going forward also. If you don't have confidence in yourself, how possibly are you trying to describe your solution to your audience also? It's not good for morale in general to begin with. So you'll be assessed when you describe your team is the energy, the enthusiasm, your abilities and confidence, how you try to describe these. Share your names, your backgrounds. Don't share your, roll number, team ID, kya kar rahe ho in terms of some random information that we provided you. Don't show all of that, okay? Simply describe your names, your background, what you're studying right now, perhaps, all right? And some of the core skills that you have in context to the solution you're trying to develop, all right? Because that gives a clear impression on whose role is what when it came to developing your solution, and in turn, it's a critical part of your story. Your leader can go on to describe your team's motivations, right? And that can be very useful when you go on to describe your problem ahead, all right? So when it comes to the problem, now there's two ways you can do this. One is we can build a direct background, or one is you can directly state it. In the case where you're building a background, the essence is that you describe all the information and statistics that you gather, customer discoveries, everything is simply condensed into a set of insights. You build these insights as you go on and end with a problem statement, right? The problem statement in essence captures all the insights that you've tried to describe. It's an outcome of your insights that you've gained. The other way to do it is where it's directly interpreted. You directly mention all the insights you might have gained through a very detailed problem statement. All right. You can start by, with a detailed problem statement and then go on to show it through your customer discoveries and so on and so forth. So there's two approaches you can use here. Personally, I recommend you go for the first one, where you build up to a problem statement, your customer insights, through your discoveries, show the videos, show the engagement, everything that is there. And that really adds value because it shows your target audience that you've gone out there to do something about it in terms of solving your problem. The other most important thing here, which I've seen most teams even on campus do in as part of our programs here, is that they really get carried away describing the problem, all right? And in any pitch, essentially, the objective is to focus more on your solution. So you simply have to give an overview of the problem, all right? And don't let that take up too much of your time. You have only 1 minute to describe the problem. The solution, you have to emphasize on your customer's unmet needs. Ideally, a problem statement should reflect that, and it would be interpreted that, the solution that you're trying to speak has considered the problem statement, and this is what we're trying to do. So here, example here at the bottom of your screen, basically. We've observed an opportunity to intervene with our solution. It's a solution name, which is a unique product service, whatever it is. Is it a product? Is it a service? Is it a SaaS tool? What exactly is it? Or dash. Dash here being how will it fulfill the customer's unmet need, right? So don't get lost in too many descriptions and interpretations. Keep it simple. The best way to keep it in mind here is the functionality, all right, of your solution. What does your solution function and do basically? If you can describe that, there is no need to give alternative descriptions on how the solution is, right? So 30 seconds for this. Comes your value prop. Value prop is basically just 3 steps. You have to describe your proposed solutions, technology, features, whatever is part of it, basically. What does your prototype? This is your prototype description also. Describe the current market options. Describe how your solution is different to the market options. So this can be described in terms of the value prop, in terms of efficiency, cost, satisfaction, ability to meet the customer's unmet need, which is a strong one you identify. Hierarchy it, all right? And then show which is the strongest one to the weakest, of the considerations, basically. Your value prop should not be a reflection of your assumptions. It should be a reflection of your problem statement, the data you've gathered, and everything. Because remember, this is just one minute each. It will be very easy for someone to fall back on some stats that you might have presented to them in the prop statement and then start linking it to the value prop. All right. If 1 plus 1 does not add up, it means you are assuming a value prop, and that will not sit lightly with any target audience and it will lead to confusion. All right. So the interlinking of your information is critical. And since the time spans are only so little, it will be very easy for a target audience to interlink into information. All right. So you have to focus here on solution practicality and your ability to describe the benefits. Simple 2, 3 word benefits are also more than enough. You can describe the benefit and then with just one sentence below it, you can describe it and enlarge it a bit more and say how. Okay, so benefit how, benefit how, benefit how. You can do that simple infographics, or you can even show it through some sort of live demonstration photographs of your prototype with the user group that you've identified for your problem. So you're 3 minutes in now, right? You're halfway there. This is kind of considered your sort of marketing and branding part of describing your pitch and your solution, right? Your heavy lifting is done. At this point, it is understood what the problem is, what the solution is. Now you have to write it home, all right? And the way to write it home is you have to start describing more details about your customer, okay? And it begins with target market. And target market simply implies who are your buyers of your product or service, okay? What is their size? Is it domestic? Is it global? And don't hesitate to show global stats as well, because it's always a question of thinking big. Of course, we are thinking of the country, but you have to give a larger context as well. All right. So, in the context of your solution, please identify the size of your target markets if possible. You can do that through extensive literature, secondary literature, data analysis. You can do it through anything just to arrive at a figure. And you can also go online to IFEB and other portals which will help you understand the snapshot of that sector or whatever that you're trying to, get into basically. Can segment your market, but I highly recommend that you understand who your focus segment is first before arriving at other segments. All right. And this is where universal design also creeps into the picture. For those of you who understood the MOOCs and seen the breaking barriers MOOCs which were provided to you in the first sprint, you know the principles of universal design and how you can leverage them to target more user segments for your product and services. All right. This is only applicable to the inclusive cities proposals, not as much as to agriculture. But in both cases, you have to, it's kind of rigid, quite frankly. In one of the this thing in the agriculture one, it's quite obvious that the target segment would be something like farmers, but you have to identify exactly, give a profile of the crops, etc., seasons, durations, and whatnot. And then in the inclusive one, you'll have to define which disability you're trying to target, perhaps, or what, and this disability as well as its severity level as well. Don't forget that, right? And don't leave your target market too broad, all right? You can't say everyone is using your product because it's a universal design solution in the case of inclusive cities, right? You have this example here, which is very crystal clear. So if you made an example of a smart shoe, all right? So again, senior citizens, location, we've taken into account UD principles which allow us to tap into additional user segments in construction, recreation, where the need of your product through safety or whatever the experience, the value prop is there. So you can enter that segment, and this will also reflect through your customer identification and all that. All right. So it has to add up, and there is no way that an audience will not be able to interpret this. It's very easily understandable. Competition and barrier to entry, all right. So in competition and barrier to entry, you have to remember that the gaps of your competitors are opportunities for your business. Wherever they have faltered a bit slightly or not considered something, can translate to an opportunity for you and your business or your solution. And you have to mention your barriers to entry, all right. Even if it is a prototype, mention just broadly what are the barriers that are in your way. So it could be a patent or a license for your prototype if someone already has the existing design. It could be something technical. There are high startup costs associated with your technology or solution, which you can't breach right now. And already there's a monopoly which I cannot break. There's technology deficiencies, or I still require additional capacity to help develop my solution. Mention these. You just have to mention it. You don't have to get into the details of it. Simple mention will do. Perhaps a one liner on just why it's really getting in your way too much. You don't need to explain your entire market study. It is a distillation always. So, what are the key gaps identified, and how are you working to make them better in the case of your context? All right. So, you don't need to show elaborate statistics, stats, or anything. You just have to show a summary. My simple recommendation to you is you can always go online, you can always YouTube and see how certain pitches are given, not in your Shark Tank format, but in any other of the incubator series which you could find on YouTube, or in any situation where is related to a university or a club or a group like Enactus and the other examples which you will see at the end of this presentation. Revenue model may also be, do not expect you to get too deep into finances for the time being, because you're still trying to perfect the prototype, you're still trying to understand the viability of your solution. It does not necessarily imply that you would already be having a financial model in your hand. It requires a lot of in-depth calculations, a lot of future projections, and so on and so forth, which we feel at this stage is not really necessary for the teams. So all you have to simply identify is what type of revenue model would you go for, and I'll elaborate on that going ahead. Okay, you don't need to get too deep into numbers once again. And always remember all these points from 0 to 8, it comes down to how ready the team is to describe the solution. Some team has cracked their solution and are very confident about it. They can get into the numbers if they like. It's as per your comfort level purely. But we recommend that you just simply describe your revenue model. In terms of milestones, can always surmise your experience of the innovation challenge, where you started, where you are now, short through truthful, practical, timestamps basically. 3 months before we were in an ideation stage. Now we're we're on the way to developing a strong prototype. Let that be a part of eYIC basically. Aside that, go maybe half a year ahead, 1 year ahead, and 2 years ahead perhaps at max, all right? And just show something very practical and context to how you wish to continue on your solution. How can you develop it further? What will you do in terms of making a market entry? Just enlist where you want to be. Right? So your ability to identify honest, practical targets aligned with the nature of your product and service is absolutely important here. Always practice. Don't stop practicing. This should ideally be pre-rehearsed so that there's no faltering in terms of your speech or your communication ability. You can always practice with a script. I recommend that. Prepare a small 5-minute script first. Identify which team member is going to speak what, and let the flow go very dynamically. Make sure it's not appearing too rehearsed, like you're standing and speaking something or so on. You can hold placards in the background which your team members can read, and so on and so forth. Right? Presentation is key here always. And for the time being, just remember you're not really pitching in this part of the sprint to gather any capital or do anything like that. You're just learning how to communicate really well for the time being. All right. It's a core competence which will definitely help you ahead in life also. Communication is absolutely critical, and it is a skill set you can gain here on this sprint. So there are some references which you can go through. Okay, I leave it to you in your own time. Go through these, understand what it means to make a smooth pitch, trying to describe the team problem and revenue models more contextually. All these videos are quite relatable and in the context of what you all are trying to do. So I recommend you go through these. All right. This is just the first presentation. I'll show you the second one now. So there are some key ingredients again. Just think of your pitch like like a recipe basically. And there are some basic key ingredients for now that I have identified for you, given the feedback that we provided you, that you should really focus on if you want to crack describing your, the value of your solution basically. So there's always a need for good ingredients like every dish. Add it in the right proportions and you nail your story basically. So we've already gone out and tried to identify some things that you have to consider. And also you'll find the very same things in the MOOCs which have been provided to you at this point. I highly recommend you go through them, explore it, simplify your graphics and content, and you'll have a very smooth pitch going ahead. So you can use these ingredients in different parts of your story. Always remember that. There's some ingredients I just want to describe to you for now. Others will be uploaded to you on the portal again and you can check them at a later stage. The first one is value. So value always has like three clear identified areas, at least given 2022, the current context of our time. So if anyone is coming up with anything as an entrepreneur at this point, three key basic considerations have to come in. One is planet, one is people, and one is performance. All right. And when it comes to planet, it's solution sustainability. Is my solution really environmentally friendly? When it comes to people, does my solution show like potential in terms of, is it endurable? Is it scalable? And can I really build it as a trusted brand going ahead into the future? Performance. How does my solution really meet my customer's unmet need? And by no surprise whatsoever, your focus in eYIC, at least for now, for the time being, is solely performance. Does your solution work and what must I do to make it work? Your solution reliability, if you can express in this challenge, it is entirely your success basically. So, what is it that really makes your solution stand out? Which you can describe through benefits and the USPs of your product, through proven demos, through proven, customer discoveries, etc. Show that in your story. Show a prototype demo, show the feedback to existing market solutions, show why the customer is more inclined to use your product, show some basic numbers surrounding it, and you would have described the value of your solution. So this is how you can, these are just basically 4 steps to quantify a customer value. You increase the customer's revenue naturally, decrease his cost of ownership. Can I reduce his purchasing cost basically? And how can I minimize my customer's capital requirements? Like how much really does he require to even think of buying my product or service? And can we reduce the customer's risks in the process after he buys the product? Right. The true value is actually this is a very sketchy mathematical way to describe it, but the inherent value of anything that we try to seek from a product or service is always the benefits minus the cost of purchase. Right. So think of it. This is just to open your mind and let you think about how you can interpret value in terms of a solution. Second ingredient is, of course, value prop and positioning. All right. Expressing value prop, this is the flow. Don't forget this ever. You have to identify the current unmet needs and gaps and list them simply. Then provide current options. What are those options and how do those meet the current unmet needs? Draw up a customer profile, which is your exact target user group, and move on to giving your value prop statements. All right. These are 2 examples for you. So on the example one on the left, which you can see, for those customers, basically you can describe what the customer is in terms of his demography, in terms of his disability, in terms of what agricultural solution he is in need of. Okay, what problem is he faces, who faces this problem. Our solution name provides functionality benefit summary, which is better, faster, cheaper, more satisfying as compared to competing brands. All right, this is one way you can write your value proposition. The other way you can write it is, our team's product service helps key identified customer segment who wants to dash by reducing, avoiding. You always start with a negative sort of verbatim, like an action verb, which is describing his problem basically. Then you entered in positive, all right? So how are you overcoming that problem? Through a positive action verb, enabling, facilitating, improving, making something more accessible. And what is his gain in the process? Unlike other competing brands value props. All right. So these are just examples. You don't really have to follow them. All right. This is just showing you how you can express value props basically. Positioning simply implies if you do arrive at a price point or whichever teams want to arrive at one, show us why and how, right? And this is how you can go about it. This is a simple method of diagramming where you identify a competitor's prices as compared to what solution price you can aim at, which is in the best interests of your business, basically. So this is just a simple way of diagramming, and if the teams are interested, they can pursue this also. Revenue, last of all. So these are the types of revenue models you can pick from, all right? So basically, there are several of them. And always remember just one very simple thing in the process. If you give a strong snapshot of your market size, if you do a relatively good, strong market competitor analysis, most of your answers for your solution, including that what revenue model you want, what you should really focus on, they will all really just come gushing towards you only. So a very good study really boosts the value of your solution, and try to arrive at an MVP, and if not, a very well described prototype through your stories. So 0 to 8 you can use to describe an MVP, or 0 to 8 you can use to describe your prototype, which must be very detailed at this point. All right. Stick to the provided flow of story given components given to you, and you'll naturally crack your pitch. All right. And there are some more references which I've added for you so that you can know the basics at least. What is the difference between a PVC, MVP, and prototype, and how to plan an MVP? I highly recommend you go through these. Okay, use the simple 0 to 8 step format which has been provided to you. Simplify and condense your information. Prepare a clearly rehearsed, prepared script which you simply, describe in the video, and it would make for a very good pitch going forward. So, thank you so much for your time, guys. And if there are any questions at this point, I'll be more than happy to take them. You can raise your hands for the same. Yeah, Manish, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
So I missed you. My exams were there, but now I am free. I wanted to ask one question. For example, I understood. Thanks for explaining so deeply and so clearly about these two slides. If in my project I want to use QGIS also,
Mm-hmm.
should I include that in my presentation?
No, no. So see, here again, like when you describe your prototype, basically, this is where you can show that we've leveraged these tools to come up with the solution, basically. Right? The tool itself or the software hardware that you used should not be misconstrued for the solution. Right?
Okay,
It's just a means to achieve your intended outcome through your product or service. All right.
got it, got it.
So you can say we've leveraged the value of QGIS and have arrived at a strong data interpretation or a strong prototype or a strong product or service which integrates its value and gives customer XYZ benefit. All right.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We have to add the ask in the pitch deck. No, no, you don't have to add any ask at this point. Even if you do, clearly try to identify, like, are you sure about it or not? Please do not add any asks or, any sort of stakes or whatever it is in this stage, at least for your pitches. Nate, please go ahead. Thanks, Atharva. Yeah. Nate, you're on mute.
So, should the presentation consist of a simulation of the product or idea, the pitch presentation?
Mhm. So that's the thing, Nihit. So that's the thing. You can do a mixed medium presentation also. It can be a mix of audio, video, and like a, like a PPT or a sort of formatted slide or panel that you've made basically. Mix and matching information and the way you communicate it, right? It can be a mix of audio trying to read a slide, it can be a mix of audio showing you the outcome of the customer discoveries, and don't ever hesitate to keep it rigid. The more you mix and match different mediums also shows that you have developed a flow and you're trying to describe your story in a far better way, right? So it would be the best thing in the world if you showed how your prototype demo works with the targeted user group that you've identified. All right, if that can be captured and condensed into a few seconds or something, it would be great to see the outcome firsthand. And any target audience at that point would interpret that, yeah, this is a a viable solution basically. Is
Okay,
there a
sir.
question?
Thank you.
Anish, again, you have a question? Go ahead.
Sorry, I just picked up that thing.
Mhm.
Things are clear.
Yeah. So remember, in this sprint, it's about communication, it's about confidence, energy, how you describe your story. It's so critical because it doesn't really matter how strong, like I said before, how strong your solution might be. If you can't describe it well, if all team members don't pitch into describing it properly, it's not really going to sit well with any target audience. So, yeah, I believe Varun Mittal has his hand raised. Varun, you have a question?
Yes, sir. So, like, sir, if we are to include a video or some simulation of our product, then
Right.
what part of the PPT or like the pitch should we include it in?
The solution itself only. So after you
Yes, sir.
identify the problem, you can go on to describing it in the solution part. All
Thank you, sir.
right. Rakesh, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, sir, I had three questions. So first one would be like, can we get any help from the eYantra side, like as you do it in eYRC? So you provide robotic kits and all, right? So can you do the same thing here to develop a prototype? So we have done the robotic simulation, so but we wanted to build a product. So can we get any help from your side?
So what I would recommend in this case instead is that you perfect showing the simulation first of all right? And show a video perhaps of you showing the simulation to your target user group. All right, collect feedback from them on that, and the insights which you gain from that, that can be shown in a video. You need not necessarily if we have limited resources to provide you at this point, you can at least show a perfected simulation and show that you've described it to your target user group, and what the target user group has in turn given you as feedback. If you can capture that and list it through points XYZ, is more than enough. Right? You have two other questions, I believe.
Yes. The first one was quite clear. The second thing is, we recently received an email from eYantra saying that we have eYantra hackathon. So, how is it different from this, and what is that?
Hackathon has a very different focus area, and the outcomes intended are very different. It is not at all in any way related to eYIC, its flow or activities as such. So don't misconstrue one for the other in any way. Yeah.
Okay, sir. And the last question was like, uh, initially, how many teams registered for this competition, and now how many teams are left with? I just
We are
wanted to
going
know
to
the
provide
number.
an overview of stats at a later point, but it's just that we don't have any intentions of releasing any of the more sensitive information regarding the competition at this point. But stay tuned, we may be releasing more things on the Discuss portal at this time, all right? And keep an eye on Discuss because going to run with you for a series of polls, questions, and so much more, which can help you improve your communication abilities. I'm going to be posting links regularly, which you can refer to as well, which can help your teams along in this sprint, at least for the time being. And more than that, we have arranged for you an experts interaction session, courtesy the Desai Sethi School of Entrepreneurship here at IIT Bombay itself. This session is likely scheduled in the start of the second week of January. All right. And this will be a simple Q&A where you can resolve many of the questions associated with business in the context of your solutions. All right. We have two expert professors lined up for you for that. And that will happen in the second week of January. An announcement for the same will be put up at Discuss portal at a later time. All right.
Yeah, okay, sir. Thank you.
And Aditya Bilay, you also have a question. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. The question was related to the prototype sprint remark. Okay, so basically the remark was given that basically our project is that to sort the crops, uh, whether it is damaged or good one. So here the remark was given that whether to sort the crop produce means the yield or to sort the crop. So they have said that we didn't get that clarity means what you are going to sort. So basically we were sorting the crops. So we need to shift to the produce or it is okay with the crop only.
That purely depends on the outcome of your intended solution. That's what I'm saying. Communication here is so important. The way you frame the statement, the way you write it and interpret it is all very critical. So when a team is like ours is going through a few hundred proposals, it does become quite difficult for us to interpret, common words like these. All right. So it would be best if you could focus a little more on your writing and perhaps just improve it on it a bit. This is a very minor, error, so don't worry about it too much. And I'm sure you can focus and rework upon it again. Are there any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, my humble request to you all is keep an okay, that is. He's telling our story to multiple people, only way to improve our pitch. No, so the thing is, it's not as much about telling your story, okay? You don't have to keep going out and telling your story also as a pitch, all right? And don't write story when you give your and submit your final proposals, all right? Simply use story as an allegory to tell you that ऐसे pitch करना चाहिए आपको, right? Don't write story for heaven's sake, right? You can just put it in the context of your solution and start off from there. Naam waam dal ke everything, all right? Story was just a vahan to tell you okay, it should be like that. Flow, contents, and everything should be like the story. Okay. And second again, let me just grasp that question again. So what you really have to do here is always remember, like I have always told all of you, you all are still students, you're learning, you're developing a solution perhaps for the first time, some of you, and for others perhaps many more times. But all of you would have realized at some point while doing all of these steps is that this is purely cyclic, right? You would always have to start with a customer discovery. You'd always have to start with a background literature. You'd always have to start somewhere, build on it, try a minimal prototype, and move on, get feedback, and keep improving it, right? That process doesn't end in any stage of that sprint, and that is where your action should come. If I have answered not Nishchay, Vardhan's question properly. Vardhan, you have to keep improving on your customer feedback, all right? And that in turn will help you improve your pitch, basically. Yeah. That's all. The question has come in, Nishchay, can we add an animation or video to illustrate the problem? Okay, in the case where you cannot really do it with the customer or the target user group that you identified, then you can perhaps show a similar method in which you are doing it, like you said, animation or video, but only as a last resort in the case where you cannot even show it through photographs. All right, the problem cannot be shown through photographs, it cannot be shown through an audio video of your target user group. Then only you go for such a format, Nishchay. I hope I have answered your question. Are there any more questions? I hope, can I just have a raise of hands to understand, first of all, like, was the content described to you today in my talk, like, clear enough for everyone to understand what has to be done? Would you all just raise your hands if you have understood it? See a lot of raised hands. I take it that it was quite clearly described. And, all the best to you all. If you made it this far, there is genuinely a fire in your belly. You will go on to do great things about your solution regardless of whether it was in the innovation challenge or not. Keep at it, keep working, keep innovating, and you guys will do wonders. So thank you all so much for joining in for this session. Take care, all the best, and like I said, stay updated on the Discuss portal for more information. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.